Can you call your supervisor?
All right, go for it. Exit the vehicle now.
That looks like the worst Popeyes drive-thru ever.
The victim goes by the name of William McNeil Jr.
Victim is a strong word.
Cops smash a black driver's window, brutally attack him.
Rather than saying a black driver's window, I would say a stupid driver's window instead, because for me, this is more about the behavior than the skin color. And as far as brutal goes, I don't really think any of this was that brutal if you've ever seen actual brutality.
Who posted the video after hiring civil rights attorney Harry Daniels and Ben Crump to help him fight this case.
I don't know about anybody else, but anytime I hear civil rights lawyers, I always think race grifters.
Yes, sir.
Is there a reason why you're popping the door open like that?
I don't have a window that works. Is there a reason that you're pulling me over?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a reason why I'm pulling you over. For one thing, inclement weather, you don't have your lights on. Two things, you're not wearing your seatbelt.
Okay, very important. I want you to notice that he asked the officer why he was being pulled over. The officer gave him 2 reasons and was on his way to 3 when this happens.
It's daylight. I don't need the lights. And it's not weather. It's not raining.
Oh, this is inclement?
It's not raining.
Okay, I'm not arguing with you. I'm telling you why I'm pulling you over.
Now, if you notice, he didn't dispute the fact that he wasn't wearing his seatbelt. I think that comes into play as well, but we'll talk about that more later. But his first mistake is, as the officer is going to give him reason number 3 for why he pulled him over, he starts arguing his point.
Give me your driver's license, registration, proof of insurance.
No, call your supervisor. Why?
Excuse me?
Call your supervisor.
So you heard that, right? The officer asked him for his license, his registration, and his proof of insurance, and instead, he takes the opportunity to whip out his EBT card.
But the law is clear. A person must comply with an officer's commands, even if that person disagrees with that officer's reasons for the stop.
What's up, everybody? Ty Rivera here, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world. Okay, you guys, so I wanted to talk about this story. The guy in the video right now that's being arrested, or at least being pulled over up until this point, is a man named William McNeil Jr. That's his name. I saw this video 2 nights ago, and at first I was appalled like anybody else would be. But I also could tell from even his vantage point, which we'll get to in a minute, there was probably something more going on and that he was being argumentative. And here's the thing that people really need to understand, because people will always try to turn this into something other than what it is, like driving while black. And this guy has hired 2 civil rights attorneys, which I think is a mistake, because I don't think this is about race at all. And while I think that maybe the officers did go too far, or the officer did go too far in hitting him.
And according to Sheriff T.K. Waters, the arresting officer, Officer Bowers, has been stripped of his police duties during this investigation.
At the same time, if the police ask you for your license, your registration, and insurance, those are things that you should provide right off the bat. I always provide that, even when I know that I have done absolutely nothing wrong and they shouldn't be pulling me over. I know that we're going to get off on the wrong foot if I don't just provide that information right up front. So I just go ahead and provide it so they have one less thing to hold against me. Different people do get treated differently by the police. I don't think that's always based on race. Sometimes I think it's based on people's perceptions or what people first think. Like with me, people always assume that I have been to prison. Not always. There have been some officers that have been very nice to me, especially recently, which I'll talk about that on videos coming up, because I have had to deal with the police a couple of times for minor, like ticket stuff like that. Nothing important, nothing big. And so I've had to deal with them, and really they've been super nice to me. But the way that it works is you have to account for whatever your factors are. And I don't think a lot of people are understanding that. And I don't think that this has as much to do with race as everybody tries to make it into with everything these days, and why I didn't originally trust the story. Because when I first saw the story, like I said, I wanted to be appalled like everybody else, but I knew there had to be more to it. I knew it couldn't just be as basic. And especially when you're dealing with social media, a lot of times people will edit things to a point where they look a particular way. Like if you notice, coming up, you're going to hear a point where the officer tells him, I've got a camera too, as in he knows that he's recording. So why isn't that part of the footage on the video that this person, William McNeil Jr. himself put out? Because he obviously had his camera out at that point, or else the officer wouldn't have mentioned it. Could it be because you know you were being difficult at that point and you knew that wasn't going to serve your case, so you decided to edit it down to where you would look as good as you could possibly look and look like the total victim? Could that possibly be it? Because today I woke up to them having released the body cam footage from the officer, which is what I started to show you right now. And are people just getting tired and less sympathetic of people from the EBT community? And when I say EBT community, do not get me wrong and think that that is just my slang for the black community. That is not the way I feel about it at all. I know there are plenty of black people doing things the way that they're supposed to, just like the rest of us do. But those black people usually aren't going to make the news, because what happens with them is they get pulled over, they handle things the way that they're supposed to handle them, and then later on they deal with them the way that they're supposed to deal with them, and not like this buffoon. So let's go ahead and pick it up there and get back into it.
Why did you pull me over?
35.
Now this is where it really starts to get annoying, and I'm sure for the officer even more so, because what this guy, William McNeil Jr., refuses to understand is he's already been told why he's been pulled over. And when you get pulled over, you don't have to like the reason.
No one enjoys being the subject of a traffic stop.
You don't have to agree with the reason, but that is the reason that you've been pulled over. And it is up to you to be as cooperative as you possibly can be. Give them the information they need so they can get you on your way. But being that this guy has already been asked for his information and has refused to give it up,
The law requires that a person comply with the police officer's commands during a traffic stop.
he's already created the problem himself. And later on, what ends up happening, not to give you a spoiler, but some of you might already know, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office has already come out and made a statement about this and said,
Within 21 seconds of his civil stop or civil traffic infractions, driving without illuminated headlights during the rain or failure to wear a seatbelt, McNeil refused to provide stopping officers with his driver's license and registration.
and that's true, because when they asked him for his information and he refused to give it, that already is creating a problem.
Give me your driver's license, registration, proof of insurance.
No, call your supervisor.
So like I said, he has created this problem himself. And I really wish people from the EBT community would stop giving each other bad advice in comments on social media or when they're talking to each other and giving each other their interpretations of the law. Because I don't know if you've noticed yet by the amount of cases that you've lost, but the EBT community is not good at interpreting law at all. Like it just happened not too long ago with Carmelo Anthony, which notice how everybody's quiet about Carmelo Anthony right now. Maybe one day I'll do an update on that. But if you don't know, it's not going well and it's not looking good for Carmelo Anthony as far as his case is working out. But you still heard people from the EBT community at that time, well, the law is stand your ground, and he stood his ground. And it's like, you don't understand. There are actual legal parameters for what stand your ground means. It's not just, I decided to stand my ground, so I'm standing my ground. I said I'm not moving, so I'm not moving. Like, at least be smart enough, which I know this is asking a lot of the EBT community, but at least be smart enough to understand that law and the interpretation of law, those aren't your strong suits, boo-boo. Let it go. Leave that to the lawyers. Hire one if you can afford one. Possibly get a public defender. Whatever you have to do. But you're not equipped to do this. And you need to stop giving people advice, because that's the reason that later on you end up rioting, is because you don't understand that the law doesn't work the same way your simple brain does. Like this guy right now is trying to argue like he's arguing with the teacher on recess. That's what's happening right now. Literally, what you're watching is this idiot, this actual buffoon, this mental midget run through what he thinks. Well, I say it's not raining, so if it's not raining, that means it's not inclement weather. I once got pulled over, no lie, no exaggeration, for driving the actual speed limit. It was raining. I was on my way to Vegas. And if you know the way from Phoenix to Vegas, there's 2 ways to go. One of them is a little bit more curvy, a little bit more, she'll be coming around the mountain when she comes. I was her. She was me. I was coming around the mountain, the speed limit, which turned out to be too fast for those driving conditions. I told the officer that I was driving the speed limit. He told me that legally I was supposed to slow down because of inclement conditions. In my head, I was like, okay, well, we'll see what happens when I go to court. And instead, later on, I Googled it. And I saw that legally I could get a ticket for that. And I was like, I'm not going to waste my time in court. So I just went ahead and paid my ticket. And that was the end of it. But technically, I was wrong. I was going to argue with the officer right there on the side of the mountain while it's raining. That didn't seem to make sense to me. So I went about my way. But this guy thinks he's arguing with the teacher on recess. So he keeps going and going and going. And that's why he ends up where he ends up. It's not about his skin color.
I've already told you.
Why did you pull me over?
Step out of the vehicle.
No.
Step out of the vehicle.
And this is when it goes from just being a little bit annoying to actually messing around. And you know what happens after you mess around? Usually you're going to find out.
14 seconds later, he locked his car door and refused to exit the vehicle.
Because now he has disobeyed 2 lawful requests. He was asked for his information. He refused to give that up. He was asked to step out of the vehicle. He now slams the door and locks his car like a child throwing a tantrum. And that's something I've dealt with too. I dealt with that not too long ago. I talked about it on an episode of my podcast. If you want, you can try to find it. I don't remember which episode. But I did get pulled over. The officer asked me to get out of the car. I didn't know why he wanted me out of the car. I told him there was no reason for me to get out of the car. He insisted I get out of the car. I didn't want to make a bigger deal of it than it had to be. I already knew I had given him my information. I know I don't have any warrants. I know I don't have any reason to be taken to jail. I knew there was nothing in the car. It turned out to be this situation where he ended up giving me 5 tickets, which I should have just gotten 1, which would have been speeding. I went ahead and dealt with the lawyer later on it. And when all was said and done, I only had to pay an administration fee. I didn't even have to pay for the actual ticket. Now, was the lawyer a different situation? Yeah. But my point is, the money that actually went to that county from me was only like $80 for the administration fee. I didn't even end up getting the speeding ticket in the end because I think they realized that they had pretty well messed up. But I knew that it's my job to stay out of jail. I know that it's my job to make sure I don't give them reasons to arrest me. I know that it's my job to come out of this alive. And that's what I wish a lot of people, even people from the EBT community, would understand, that I'm not really your enemy when I say this kind of stuff, and I'm not being insensitive, and I'm not trying to discount your plight. None of it is what I'm trying to do. I'm thinking, and correct me if I'm wrong if there's anybody from the EBT community in my comments, but I think the goal is to deal with as few legal ramifications as possible and to come out of this alive. That's the way I feel about it. So if that's your goal, then you should probably listen to someone like me instead of calling me names or telling me what I don't understand. Oh, believe me, I do understand. But at the same time, I understand what the mission from our side as citizens has to be. And the only reason that I direct this at the EBT community when I say this is because a lot of people have already figured this out. A lot of people already know that it's best to just go with the flow, let things happen, but really, when you have some stuff you're trying to hide, maybe you're not so cooperative.
25 seconds. For 9-4, the driver just slammed the door and locked it. Yep.
See, he's yelling from inside the car, call your supervisor. I don't know who told him that you should treat the police like this is a customer service dispute, but he's really not doing himself any favors right now.
Unit 25 units 1050 at West Palm and Commonwealth.
25 seconds. If anybody responded, come in from Commonwealth, block the vehicle, please.
Well, I'm coming West Palm, Commonwealth. I'll be there in a sec.
Keep your hands where I can see them, sir. My camera's on too. I've already told you. Okay.
See, the officer just said, yup, my camera's on too. But for some reason, that isn't on the video that he actually provided. So why is he showing the officer his phone and letting him know that the camera's on, but suddenly that footage doesn't end up online on his side? Like I said, could it be that you decide to edit it down so that it would show you in the best possible light and not show you acting like a baby for the entire duration of how long you were acting like a baby? And one of the reasons I wanted to point that out is because I saw people in comments on these videos saying the officers must not have known he was recording. That cop didn't know he was recording. I don't think he would have said, yeah, I have camera too, if he didn't know that he was recording. Idiots online. Idiots. I swear, I try to be nice sometimes, but the level of buffoonery playing detective online. Can some of you use your actual brain? And I know I sound upset. I'm just frustrated because there's so many dumb people that refuse to understand the way these things work that is just exhausting. And now we as taxpayers are gonna have to deal with this. Well, maybe not us, because this is a Florida situation. So the Florida taxpayers are going to have to deal with this. But state to state, we all end up dealing with these kinds of things because there's so many buffoons like this that don't understand how things work. It's fresh. It's maddening. That's it. It's maddening. Before we go any further, I'm just going to ask that you like, comment, and subscribe. I'm also going to remind you that if you're going to be in Phoenix, Arizona, August 16th, you can see me perform live. One show is all I'm doing. That's one show on August 16th. If you want the information, if you want to grab some tickets, check out the pinned comment below and you'll find everything you need.
Okay. Right now you're under arrest for resisting. You understand? You're under arrest for resisting. The longer you take us on, the worse it's going to be.
He warned him. He's under arrest for resisting. The longer he takes it, the worse it's going to be. He doesn't want to understand it. And really, what you end up finding out later in the story is that he has wacky tobacco on him. And I don't know if you know this, but in Florida, having MJ, and I don't mean Michael Jackson, is illegal as far as recreational goes. You can have medical, but there are certain restrictions. So let's talk about what he actually got charged with. So what he ended up getting charged with was having the wacky tobacco, which was under 20 grams, resisting the officer without violence, which is what you end up witnessing right here, completely avoidable, not having his seatbelt on, so there was that too, driving while under a suspended license, which I would imagine that's the real reason that he didn't want to let them know, because I didn't bother looking into Florida for this one, but I know as far as Arizona and California, I know from experience that if you get pulled over on a suspended license, it's mandatory jail. Not because I actually ended up going to jail for that, but just because my license had been suspended when I was younger in each of those states, and they tell you ahead of time, these are the penalties if you go ahead and drive without your license, well, while your license is suspended or revoked. I don't know if Florida is the same. I would imagine it is, and that's probably the reason. Okay, now that all makes sense. I just figured out in this. I'm glad I went ahead and looked into it because I did go ahead and look into it really quick. And here's the deal. And this is why he was acting that way. And this is why, if you notice, they say he got busted in February, but he didn't get his phone back until March.
After this traffic stop on February 19, 2025, McNeil was arrested for resisting a police officer without violence, driving on a suspended driver's license, and possession of less than 20 grams of marijuana. On February 20th, 2025, McNeil pled guilty to and was adjudicated guilty of resisting a police officer without violence and driving on a suspended driver's license. Those pleas of guilty were accepted by a local judge who found them to have been factual basis and to have been voluntarily made by McNeil. After the resolution of this criminal case, McNeil took custody of his cell phone, the one he presumably used to record the footage that was shared on social media, on March 5th, 2025.
And I was like, why so long for him to get his phone back? He probably ended up getting time early, or they are overcrowded in the jail in Florida, or some way or another he got out early. But it's a minimum. Like, if you don't know that you have a suspended license in Florida, It's a civil infraction with the maximum $153 fine. And then if it's your first time with knowledge, then it's second-degree misdemeanor, up to 60 days in jail, and a fine of up to $500. So that explains why he was doing all this, was because he didn't want them to find out that he was driving on a suspended license. That's truly what I do believe was going on, which I knew that part to begin with, but I didn't realize it was such a stiff penalty in Florida. But yeah, that makes sense if he didn't want to go to jail for 60 days, which who would want to go to jail for 60 days? And also, just really quick, when they say that they were driving in inclement weather and he says it's not raining, there's also a point from another body cam angle, which we're not going to go through, but I'll go ahead and put it right here just so you can see it, where they're actually talking to him on the other side of his car, and his window does appear to be wet.
Can you step out? You're being done. There's a traffic stop being conducted. You're required to comply.
Which tells me that it was probably raining earlier, which if you know anything about Florida, Florida will just rain out of nowhere and then it just completely stops. And then you go right back to sunny, which there was an expert on one of the newscasts I was watching.
Our crime and safety expert, Ken Jefferson.
And he was saying, it looks like a sunny day. And
the officer's reasoning for probable cause to stop him said that it was inclement weather and he was driving without headlights on. So as we look at the video, it appears to be sunny.
It's like, it looks overcast. Let's be honest. It's not a sunny day. Correct me if I'm wrong. Let me know. But yeah, so now it makes sense why he's acting a damn fool and wasting everybody's time, which I'm sure is really pissing the cop off as well. I'm sure the officer wants to get on to other things. He's got other people to arrest in a day. He's got other tickets to give out. He doesn't want to spend all day dealing with your customer service complaint.
Keep your hands where I can see them, sir. Okay.
See, he's yelling, you can see him, you can effing see him. It sounds like he said you can effing see him right after he said you can see him. But again, this doesn't show up on his version of the footage. I wonder why that is. He's recording, right? Okay, so that's where the other officer pulls up. You don't end up missing a lot in between. There is a point where the officer warns him, I'm going to break your window if you don't just get out of the car, if you don't just open the door. There is a point where he's warned.
Sir, this is your last warning to open the vehicle and exit before we're going to break the window. Open the door and exit or we are going to break the window. Open the door and exit or we are going to break the window.
He tells them, I'm going to break the window if you don't open the vehicle and come out. The officer is within his rights to do exactly what he just said.
So we'll go ahead and pick it up now from his vantage point, and that's what everybody originally saw online, which I'm going to remind you is more than likely an edit of just the part where he didn't look as bad as he could possibly look, trying to go ahead and plead his case, knowing that he was going to do something with this, knowing that he was recording so he could really ham it up. Oh, and also just really quick, I know that that's a problem with cameras, even if it's body cam or this guy's cameras. There's a chance for people to edit them. There is that. But then there's also the fact that cameras are only going to catch so much depending on where they are on your body. Like with the officers, you couldn't see the part where he actually gets hit because of where the camera is on the officer's body. So I think part of it was covered by the door of the car when they reached in to grab him. So you couldn't see that on their camera angle. And so maybe everybody should standard just have a dash cam. I'm going to look into one and see if I can have one, because maybe I can get lucky and go viral sometime and maybe I can get some money. Why shouldn't I get some money? My civil rights could be violated. I could be driving while black or driving while brown. Could you imagine the video I could make if I get pulled over by ICE? Oh my God, I'd love it. Yeah, I'm going to get a dash cam.
When he pulled me over, he walked up, opened my door because my window don't work, right? Okay. And then I said, so what I did wrong? Yeah. He said, well, for one, your headlights are off under this weather. I'm like, okay. There's multiple people headlights off, first of all. And then there's no rain.
I told you guys, he really thinks he's dealing with the customer service dispute. And it's when the officer is on his side of the car that picture comes from, where you can see that there definitely is water on the side of his car. So that's what the officer is looking at as they're talking. But never mind any of that. This is not conversation that should be happening right now, but this guy still thinks that he's going to be smart enough to argue his way out of this, when really his best chance was just to go ahead and hand off his information, let it ride, hope the officer was going to give him just a warning by some stroke of miracle, maybe finesse him with a lot of personality, maybe smile as much as you possibly can. That's what I do at this point when I get pulled over. I have all of my stuff ready and I'm really happy and smiley. That way the officer knows I am not a threat. I'm a nice guy. I'm fully cooperative. I'm not trying to give you any guff. I'm not any of what you might assume I am by looking at my appearance. And I know some people would say, black people shouldn't have to do that. I shouldn't have to do that. Nobody should have to do anything. But guess what? Some of us do. So when you want to come to me and you're like, well, because you're black, you have to remember that there's this, this, and this. Okay, well, this guy has been black for 22 years. So if in 22 years, he hasn't figured out how to be black successfully, that's not my fault. And if you want to say it's not fair, one of the most important things my mother ever told me growing up was life isn't fair. And then you know what happened after my mother told me life wasn't fair? I snitched on her to my father. You know what my father told me? She's right. Life isn't fair. And from then on, I knew not to ever come to anybody with the it's not fair argument again, because my parents had already told me that it's not fair. And believe me, they were very unfair people. I dealt with a lot of injustice growing up. My sisters got away with a lot of shit I didn't. But on the other side, I got away with a lot of shit they didn't. So fuck those bitches too. But you get what I'm saying. Everybody should be raised to know that life isn't fair. And this may not be an EBT community thing specifically here. This may be more of a generational thing. Like this guy is 22, so that's Gen Z. Gen Z has been raised in some cases by millennials and by soft Gen Xers that have them thinking that everything is going to be fair. It's worse than just participation trophy. Participation trophy was the millennials. The millennials raised these Gen Zers to believe that not only should you be able to get a participation trophy, you should get a participation trophy even if you don't participate. That's how soft millennials are raising their children to be. Like this guy is not mentally participating, still wants a participation trophy.
It doesn't matter. You're still required to have headlights on.
Can you pull that law up?
Huh?
Can you pull that law up?
Yeah, when you step out of the car, I will.
Can you call your supervisor?
Can you pull that law up? Can you call your supervisor? This guy could not be more annoying. How long does he think that this is supposed to go on? And to the people that are sympathetic to this guy's case, please tell me, how long do you think the police are supposed to go back and forth with this guy in this circular argument of, can you call your supervisor? Why am I being pulled over? I'm going to argue that, so I'm not going to give you what you need. How long is this supposed to go on before something is warranted?
Can you call your supervisor?
All right, go for it.
Exit the vehicle now! Exit the vehicle!
And unfortunately, I can't show you guys the punch in the face because YouTube will demonetize the video. But just know that there is a punch in the face. And there's a part of me that thinks and knows that that's wrong. But there's also a part of me that feels like this may be exactly what that guy needed. Is just a quick smack into reality. Because clearly he thinks he's somewhere else right now. And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the officer should have done it. I'm not saying that he was legally right to do it. That has yet to be determined. But what I am saying is that may have been the wake-up call that this guy needed.
Show me your hands.
Here.
See, and that right there is my confirmation that that statement I made might have been correct. Because if you notice, even after he got hit, he still had an attitude and was like, here, shows his hands, crosses his arms, and sits back in his seat like he's just going to continue his tantrum. And also, if you notice, he's mugging for the camera right after he got hit and before he sits back to settle into his tantrum once again. He doesn't realize they're done playing with him.
I'm here. What is your reason, sir?
Step out.
What is your reason?
Step out now.
All right. No, don't.
And there I had to block out another punch. And that second one, I think, may have been warranted. And I know some people may disagree with me, but if you actually get to see the unedited version, which I invite you all to do, maybe I'll leave a link down below for that as well. Check the pinned comment. I might put both there if I can remember. But There's a point where they try to pull his head down because they're telling him to get down, and it looked like he was resisting, and his attitude so far has been resistant. So that one I think may have been warranted. I don't know what the rules are for police. I don't know what the laws are as far as when they can and can't hit you. Argue it amongst yourselves, or you let me know in the comments if you actually do know. But if you can, cite the actual law. That's all I would ask if you're going to come at me in some kind of angry way. If you're just like, I think it may be this, I get that and I'm fine with it. But when people come in real hot, like, you're stupid, and then don't cite any kind of law, it's just them being like me and just having an opinion. It's like, okay, well, we might both be stupid. Did you ever consider that? Why do I got to be the only stupid one? I'm not saying just you're stupid. I always leave room for the fact that I could be stupid too. And I very well may be. But just because I'm stupid doesn't mean you're smart. But really, in a lot of cases, whether or not it's legal is beside the point, because this guy is just lucky enough that he was recording. Because in a lot of cases, when it comes to the police, or at least back when I was younger and there weren't body cams and stuff like that, you really had to watch yourself, because in certain cases, they were going to do what they were going to do anyway. And there was always a point when the police were just done with the games 100%. And you knew that. So you just knew that unless you wanted to take whatever was coming your way, then you better get it in line and just start being as cooperative as you possibly can be. And don't get me wrong, when I was younger, I went through all of it. I was defiant with the police. I got into it with the police. I can tell you stories about when I was younger and dealing with the police. There was one time when I really cussed a cop out good, to the point where even the other cops started laughing. We'll get into that story one day too, but the cops really got a good laugh out of me just clowning the shit out of a cop that really was trying to be verbally abusive, but I was too good at that. I'm lucky he didn't slam me around for a little while, but never mind.
Stop fighting! Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. Hands behind your back. What's wrong with you?
I was putting my hands behind my back.
Ain't no talking now, man. Ain't no talking.
Fucking stupid shit, bro. I was fooling, bro. What's going on, man?
You're under arrest. That's what's going on.
No, bro.
Yes, bro.
You
Yes.
have a lawful reason, bro.
Big knife center in here too.
He still thinks he's arguing with the police. He's telling the police no, that he's not under arrest, and he's telling them that they don't have a lawful reason. How dumb is this guy?
You gonna throw my phone like that, bro?
Yeah, I'm gonna take it off
now,
of you,
man.
bro.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to have a regular conversation with y'all, bro.
That's not how it works.
Too late. It ain't gonna too late.
When they asked you to step out of the vehicle, you should have done that shit.
Sir, your partner didn't even ask.
In his right pocket.
Yes, it is.
So why close the door if you see him pull up?
Because, man, what you mean? He talking about arresting me and stuff, bro. I didn't do nothing.
It's called resisting, idiot.
I didn't do nothing wrong, sir. Can you back me up to the car so I can clean up? Shut up. You was bugging my shit, bro.
See? And that's where they have the marijuana, and you also heard them say that he had the knife at that point too, which I know later on the police weren't being the most honest if they said that he was reaching for the knife, because I never saw him look for the knife, which they say that that was in the officer's report. I never saw that, so I can't really say it happened, but that's also what I mean when I say that sometimes the police will get away with what they're going to get away with. And if your goal is to stay alive, if your goal is to stay out of jail, then you have to understand that you have to work within their parameters, because in some cases it will come down to your word against theirs. And when it goes down like that, in a lot of situations, they are going to side with the police. And that's why I try to give people actual real world advice, because what you'll get a lot online is people telling you to almost act like a lawyer or act like you know things better than you know them. But if you've ever paid attention, there's even points where lawyers will talk about having their rights violated by the police. So if it can happen to a lawyer, it can happen to anybody. And while I know a lot of people would like to turn this into, well, you have to understand when it comes to race and this particular thing and the power structures that are set up this particular way in this country. And if you're ever gonna, yeah, I'll let somebody else fight that fight. I'm not trying to go to jail for years over that. I'm not trying to go to jail for minutes over that. I'm not trying to go to jail for hours over that. This guy ended up dealing with some medical situations over this. He had to get some stitches in his lips. He supposedly had a concussion. I'm not really sure how much of that I really believe, to tell you the truth, but if it's going to help him get more money, then I guess more power to him, because that's what the play seems to be at this point, is this guy trying to get some actual money out of this situation. I don't really think it has to do with much more than that. even though they try to make it seem like it's about civil rights and everything. It's really not. This was about a person that doesn't know how to cooperate with the police, doesn't know how to behave, and I hope he doesn't get a single dime, to tell you the truth. That's the way I honestly feel about this, and it's not based on his race. I hope he doesn't get a dime so that other people understand that you don't get rewarded for being too stupid to listen to the police. You don't get rewarded for wasting everybody's time. You don't get rewarded for acting like a child when you're a grown man that should know better. And like I said, I don't want to hear anything about the driving while black. I don't want to hear anything about the if he were a different race, it would go down differently. Things go down differently for everybody in a lot of different situations. And like I already said, if you haven't learned how to successfully navigate whatever your factors are, whether your factors are you're disabled, you're black, you're illegal, you're Latino with a lot of tattoos, whatever your circumstances are, if you have not figured out how to successfully navigate those factors, there comes a point in your life where that's nobody's fault but your own. And maybe you should be a little better about that. And that's honestly where I'm at on it. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. If you want to see a video of me talking about a recent hoax that went on in the LA community regarding ICE, click the video on your screen. Other than that, as always, thank you for watching. This has been Ty Rivera, the absolute best LGBTQ comedian in the world.
They bought into his bullshit.